Well, it's time for hemp. Yeah. Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to the live broadcast of Time for Hemp all around the world on AmericanFreedomRadio.com and on AM/FM stations all across America and on the Roku network. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and remind you that the last I heard, nearly 2 million people all around the world, anytime they hear the word joint on the big broadcast, grab their bongs, their vaporizers, and their joints and take time for hemp. On the program today, we want to give a big shout out to all of our friends up in Canada and say thank you to KDK Distributors for being nice enough to give us a grant to keep us loud, proud, and strong. Send our love to Head Shop Canada. Tomorrow they will be on this show. Tim Zielinski will be on with Daryl Cotton talking about how to grow your wonderful plants. And today we are going to be focusing on TV for one. We want to know if grandma should smoke marijuana. We're going to find out about this groovy TV show that's making the airwaves that was put together by a gentleman who wrote a book called the Tuna Diaries, and he's also involved with the Silver Tour. Many of you out there are aware of it. And today's joint host is Carey Burns. And you know Carey from our Time for Hemp family. Carey, it's been a while since you've been on the big broadcast. How are you doing?
Hello there. Hi there, Casper. It's great to be back with you. I'm just excited as I can be to be with you today.
Well, I know you're a fan of Robert, and when you heard that he was going to be on the broadcast and Kelly could not join host, you were quick to volunteer to be the joint host today, so you'd have the opportunity to meet Robert. Robert, I'd like to have you meet Carey Burns. He's a hardworking activist. He's got a show called the Cannabis Corner.
Hi to both of you. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and let's talk.
Well, first of all, I'm pretty excited. You got a TV show about smoking marijuana in prime time, full of great messages and the truth. Now, you want to let people know a little bit, or let's say a lot about that?
Yes, be my pleasure. Should Grandma Smoke Pot is the name of the show, and it's a 30-minute version of my live Silver Tour show. As you know, the Silver Tour made great headway in getting seniors out in the open to talk about medical marijuana and to talk to their legislators about legalizing medical marijuana. Seniors are the people with the greatest need, and it attracted attention all over the world. The Wall Street Journal had nothing but praise for the Silver Tour, and they put it right on the front page. It was on the front page of a Paris newspaper. CNN Money did a feature, and so did Newsweek. The Silver Tour really raised consciousness about speaking to seniors about medical marijuana. And then last April, when I came back from the Patients Out of Time conference in Arizona, the International Medical Conference, a man showed up at my door and said he was my new PO, parole officer. I said, wait a minute, I'm done with parole. He said, well, but there's special parole, and you're a special guy. I said, I'd rather not be so special, but in any case, the first thing they did was order me to cancel all travel in furtherance of promoting legalization of medical marijuana, or marijuana, period. And rather than sit still for it, since they wouldn't let me travel, you know, I'm an old infomercial producer. I was making infomercials before Ron Popeil or Billy Mays or any of them. And I knew just how to get that message out without ever leaving home. So I produced, along with one of the biggest award-winning editors and producers, Walter J. Collins, I produced a 30-minute show that would fit into infomercial slots, paid programming slots on stations all over the country. And we've been on 6 stations now. The results have been tremendous. Whenever we air, the lawmakers in the area get a lot of phone calls and get a lot of letters, mostly from seniors, demanding safe, legal access to a medicine that they had no idea they needed before they see the show. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I had a man come to my door, which isn't easy because I live in a gated community. And he said, Bobby, he said, I just wanted to thank you in person. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, my grandson is autistic, 10 years old, just like Joey Perez in your show. You know the Joey Perez story. Joey was dying, and the only thing that saved him was cannabis. And Joey had been a violent kid. He refused to eat. And Lester Grinspoon put him on a magic brownie every 2 days. Of course, the first thing he did was get an appetite and started to put his body weight back on. And the second thing is, of course, it's a violence inhibitor. So Joey just changed his whole behavior. And this man's grandson had the same problem. And they were considering putting him away. They were about ready to do it because they couldn't cope with him. He was constantly violent, screaming, threw his feces around. And his son saw the show and called him, and they decided to try it. And he said, it's just made all the difference in the world to the kid. And I just wanted to come thank you because now we can keep him at home. And it's a very potent show. I mean, if you've seen it, you know it's pretty hard to refute anything in the show. And it gives everybody a personal reason. A woman sent me an email this morning who has Crohn's, and she saw a woman her own age talk about using it so she could control her bladder and control her bowels. And it's just a great antispasmodic. And she said the last couple of days since she's out in California, and she went and got a doctor's card. And she said for the first time in a long time, she doesn't have to wear diapers, and she can go out and go shopping and lead a normal life. So the show is gratifying. You've got to take the message to the people. People aren't watching, the people you want to reach are not the people who are watching YouTube or getting our message on Facebook or Twitter. You have to take it to the medium they're watching. And the medium they watch is commercial television. And we just went on the air yesterday. We'll be on 4 times a week in prime time, 7 p.m. after the news, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for the next 2 to 3 months, depending on donations and memberships. I mean, it's Silver Tour supporters who pay for this. Silver Tour is a nonprofit. I don't even draw a salary out of it. No one does. Everything goes to pay for office expense and television time. I'm planning on more stations in northern Florida, Alabama, Pennsylvania, and several other places that need a boost for their proposed legislation. We've got a great new bill in Florida, and we've got tremendous bipartisan support now. But we need support from central and northern Florida, and grandma's the way to get it. It's going to be in TV in front of all of them. The station it's on is like a local superstation. They broadcast all the way from South Miami on up to Vero Beach. They've got more reach than any other station in the state. All in HD, too. They were the first high-def station.
That's fantastic. That is just fantastic. And the number of people you're going to reach with that is just amazing. There's just no way of calculating that.
No, well, I know I'll reach over 1 million people if I keep it on the air for 2 to 3 months. And when I say reach, I mean that's the number of people I can convince. I'm an old infomercial guy. I know you need repetition. Having a show on the air once or twice is great. but it doesn't have a lasting effect. It's transitory. You know, I was on the Daily Show a couple of weeks ago. Got a tremendous response, but that's done, gone in its history. I mean, the Daily Show piece was great. It showed pieces of Should Grandma Smoke Pot and part of a live tour, and it was hysterically funny, and it was absolutely all on our side. But it's here and it's gone. With Should Grandma Smoke Pot, you run it like an infomercial, and it has results like an infomercial. If people couldn't sell things with infomercials, they wouldn't pay a lot of money to run them on TV. And by the way, I buy the television time through a private auction process that's only open to infomercial producers.
Wow. So that means you're getting a good rate that most people would normally get?
About 25% of what an agency or a local advertiser would pay to buy programming time.
That's fantastic, because that means you can keep the broadcast up on the air longer. I love that. Carey, you got a couple of questions here? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I think that you made a good point about, just running the show a couple of times. Yeah, it's great that finally shows like that can get out there, but the American people, they're so slow to learn, and they're so slow to be receptive. So, you're right, and that's really the task of all of us that are trying to get the cannabis legal and all, is trying to educate this public that's been brainwashed for 7.5 decades now, and each decade they've just piled layer upon layer of more BS, and these people believe it, and that's what you're up against. You're just up against this tremendous amount of lies, particularly, and repetitive showing is the only way you're going to ever turn these people around.
Yeah, and it has this kind of effect. When someone sees it and is impressed by it, they'll call somebody else and they'll say, watch it next Wednesday or watch it on Friday. It's going to be on for weeks. And that gives them a chance to spread the news out and the program to pick up momentum. Every time it's aired, the audience will get larger and larger and larger exponentially.
It's truly grassroots. You're right.
That doesn't happen if you only air it a couple of times.
That's right.
It's here and gone. And hopefully it will generate enough donations to keep going and get into other areas. We recently had a donor who asked that his donation be used to show the show in Alabama. And I'm looking at Alabama time. But I'll need a handful of more donors so that I know I can cover at least a month to go on the air and let it generate enough income to stay on the air for another month or two. And I can buy time up there pretty cheap. I can probably buy half hours for $100, $150. And that's incredibly cheap for reaching the number of people with the most potent form of media, and that's television, both visual and audio.
That's amazing. I think that's certainly cheap enough for the amount of people that you're going to be able to expose it to. I just hope you get lots of donations so you can really take that to the next level.
Well, it's been a hard fight, but we're getting it done. I produced the show for about $23,000 because I did most of the work myself, me and my editor and producer. And it's of the highest possible broadcast quality. The chief attorney for Hearst Broadcast Stations, when they looked at the show to give it approval, he said he has never seen as well done, as classy, and as visually, I'm talking about technically, perfect as Should Grandma Smoke Pot. When it's shown on a high-definition station, it almost looks like a live event.
And that gives credibility to your show.
Oh, sure it does. and producing it for that amount of money is almost like getting it free. I mean, a commercial that quality costs 5 times that and more to produce. But
yeah, get one.
And I even, when I was a kid in my 20s, I worked at a television station. So I'm an old hand at that stuff.
Well, I'm certainly an old hand at doing radio. It has been a lot of fun. We're coming up on a commercial break here in about a minute, and then we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then we're going to come back and let the world know how important it is to take time for hemp. Of course, I want to remind people that if you go to iTunes and type into the search engine there, Time for Hemp, all 4 of our podcasts pop up. They're the Time for Hemp Music Podcast, Time for Hemp Today, which has a lot of activists and music, Time for Hemp Classic, and we are currently lining up all the past programs from the Time for Hemp Live series into the iTunes, all free to download, share with your friends. But also encourage you to go to AmericanFreedomRadio.com and make a donation. If you like this particular broadcast, you are sure to like all the other broadcasts that's heard on this network, including the Vinny Eastwood Show. And I think Vinny Eastwood knows that we are big fans of his because he himself even knows how important it is to take time for him. Yeah, baby, we'd be nice, but what would even be more nice if everybody could utilize that plant for whatever they need, medicinal purposes, social purposes, utilizing it for industrial products like paper, fibers, and fuel. I tell you, people, this plant is a gift from Mother Nature for mankind to benefit from. 50,000 different products can be produced from this one plant. And it's amazing the ignorance in Washington that perpetuate this war on drugs. I would encourage you to get involved in your community and making a difference. Find an organization, should there not be one. Well, golly, there's no point you sitting around with your finger up your nose watching America's Got No Talent. You need to get out there and become part of the solution. Just like our joint host today, Carey Burns, and our hard-working activist and author, Robert Platshorn, who are doing the same in their neck of the woods. And you cannot stop these gentlemen. And Robert, as you said, you are tethered to your home, but that doesn't stop you from getting the message out. And I know when people first hear that there's a TV show about She Grandma Smoke Pot, they're all excited to tune in. They think they're going to see tie-dyes and hear the Emerson, Lake, and Palmer in the background, and they're going to be jumping up and down at a concert. And instead, they are being hit in the face with logic and facts and information that dispels myths and rumors. I love that.
Yeah, they'll see Dr. Andrew Weil, Dr. Donald Abrams, head oncologist at San Fran General, Dr. Bob Melamede, and Raphael McCollum from Israel. They'll see, of course, our buddy Irv Rosenfeld, who is a director of the Silver Tour. Should Grandma Smoke Pot is just another version of the Silver Tour. And Irv's story is featured on Grandma, as well as several other patients, people from all over the country, people from out of the country. And when a 70-year-old man sees another 70-year-old man or a group of them on television, and some of them doctors, saying that this is the best medicine for a host of things that normally bother all seniors, it hits home. And it makes them think that they'd be a lot better off if they could eliminate half of the toxic meds. You know, most seniors are on a dozen meds or more. And they can eliminate a lot of them with cannabis and not have the toxic effects and the expense of the things they're using now. And when they see other people on television doing that, talking about it openly, it just opens the discussion way up. 3 years ago when I started talking to seniors, seniors were really not up for talking about cannabis at all. And now it's just flat out in the open. It's a discussion you can have. And that gives me tremendous satisfaction because not one organization ever talked to seniors. Not Normal, not ASA, not any of them. They just left seniors out in the cold. And without the senior vote, things don't happen.
Well, and there's a lot of seniors, and myself as I'm not too many years away from, I'm already a grandfather, but I've smoked cannabis every day for the last 45 years, and I think there's a lot of seniors out there that are just like me that have smoked their whole lives, and they plan to do it until they put us 6 feet under. And I think that your show will show the people who aren't like me that are seniors that in their wildest dream they never thought they'd use cannabis, for anything, and yet they can relate to people that that you're showing on your show, and I think that's wonderful that you can get that message out like that.
Yeah, even a lot of long-term smokers really had no idea of the number of medical conditions that can be helped, and they don't know about tinctures, oils, pills, Chiba-Chews, and energy drinks, and there's just a whole world that they haven't the vaguest notion about because it's not anywhere they can see it. And when you put it on mainstream television and they can refer each other to go look at it, it just swings the doors wide open.
That's like herbs in general. The average person out there really doesn't understand the benefits of them, whether it's the cannabis herb or basil or, sages or whatever. All of those plants are, they're herb-type plants, and 99% of most of the herbs out there carry also extreme medicinal qualities with them, and that's what people are just clueless about. Unless I've grown them and used them my whole life. Of course, I've probably have not the normal compared to a lot of people I'm around in this part of East Texas. But if people understood just that alone about herbs in general, they would be a little bit more easier to accept, the cannabis, because that's really all it is. It's an herb that has a side effect that is euphoric and makes you feel good. I mean, but it's hard to get that message across to people who've been brainwashed for decades.
Well, I try to keep it very focused. And when they see someone else living in a nice community, well-dressed, maybe a retired doctor or lawyer or a woman who was a nurse all her life, talk about how much cannabis has helped them and how it works, they relate to that, and it gives them a personal reason for taking action. Yeah. Ultimately, that's what works. You can talk about the horror of putting people in prison, the terrible cost to our economy, and people will sympathize, but they don't often do anything until you've given them a specific reason personal to them, whether it's giving them a good night's sleep so they don't have to take Lunesta or Ambien or any of those other things that are extraordinarily dangerous. And every senior has a sleep problem, whether it's to replace the opiates they're taking for their injured back or their arthritis or rheumatism or MS. It gives them a personal reason to say, I want this, and you can't tell me I can't have it. If we've got to change the law, you better do it, or I'm going to vote for somebody else. Personal reason is why people buy something or take action. I'm giving you the old Pitchman secrets.
Well, that's what kind of like my next question was, Robert, you got a great book, and if you wanted to, you could have just very easily just come home and quietly focused on your book and promoting your book, and maybe even not gotten so harassed by your PO officers and had a little easier path. But instead, you picked up this cross to carry it, and which, on behalf of the marijuana movement, thank you. But what is it that motivates you and motivated you to put yourself through all of that when you could have just as easily had a much more chilled, relaxed path?
Well, the obvious answer, first of all, is I don't ever want to see anybody to spend any jail time for a weed, and certainly not the kind of time I spent. But what really motivated me, when someone comes to me and says, my wife has MS, she's bedridden, can't get up out of bed, I take care of her all day, but she does have good days. And I said, what's that about? He said, well, when I can find her something to smoke. The pain is lessened. She can get up out of bed. Maybe I can take her to lunch or get her hair done, and she feels like a human being. And then that same man said to me, please help me get something for her to smoke. And I had to say, not under any circumstances. Because if you get caught and I referred you, then I'm going to spend much more time in prison than you or the guy who sold it to you, because I'm a high-profile target. He said, and I've done enough prison. But having to tell somebody that virtually had me in tears. And it happened over and over again. People with glaucoma telling me, oh, I used to live in California. I had it under control. I live in Florida now. I've got to get something. These meds are killing me and they're not helping. And I've got to say, I can't help you. And well, yes, I can. What I can do is change the law. I'm the one who went and pitched the legislators and got our first bill put in Tallahassee. I just pitched him again, and we've got a bill now that's like the old Colorado medical bill. It's got uniform standards. It allows for dispensaries, growers, regulation, doctor education, and it will be introduced in Tallahassee this year with bipartisan support. And I got to raise a bunch more money to get Grandma on TV in Central and Northern Florida and make sure that passes. That's my passion. And now as far as selling books, I mean, that's my living, or was my living, till they pulled the rug out from under me. I made my living signing books at all the Hemp Fest and Hemp Stalk and High Times, medical marijuana cups. I write a senior column for them sometimes. And was most of my living. And now I can't travel to any of those places. And the book sales I was living on is down to a trickle. And I can thank my parole officer for that little thing. Because, I was in a movie, Square Grouper, that tells my story and the story of the smuggling era in South Florida. It's been on Showtime for quite a while. It's a documentary. I don't get paid for it, but it sells a few books a month for me anyway.
We're coming up on a commercial break, and I tell you, every time you and I speak, I learn more and more about you. You've had quite a fascinating path in life, and I know it's been crappy in a lot of ways, but you've managed to turn it around into a positive message and to find something remarkable to share with others from your past to make a better future. We really admire all that you do, Robert. I tell you, you are what we call in the movement a true hero here at Time for Hemp. Yeah, baby, let me introduce myself. I'm Casper. The program you are listening to is called Time for Hemp, and we are live all around the world on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, AM/FM stations all across America, and on Roku Network. And I want to thank AmericanFreedomRadio.com for the amazing job they do for raising the voice of freedom and the marijuana movement. And again, a big salute to you, Robert, for your fantastic work. The years you spent behind bars, I know, were just horrific. And I hope that somehow through your book and through your work that those years in your path can be something that you can just forget. I don't say how you would, but at least I mean, someone as amazing like you should not have gone through that horrible, horrible, horrible path. Do you ever feel bitter still? I mean, I certainly would. After reading your book, I think it would take me a long time to get the hate out of my system. I don't know how you did it.
No, when you're driving a car, you look out the front window. You don't turn around and look back. I'm 70 years old. Since I've been out, I've done things that I enjoy and I'm very proud of. And I think in the next year or two, I can be a big factor in getting the job finished, in seeing cannabis prohibition gone from America, seeing hemp grown all over this country, seeing our prisons empty out, seeing private prisons disappear. I just don't have time to look back and be bitter. The only thing I'm bitter about right now is I can't go and take speaking engagements and earn a couple of bucks to make my wife happy. Wouldn't make me too sad either. It does hamstring me. I mean, every now and then I get a call to be on a big network TV show, and if they can't set up a remote, I've got to give up what would be a very valuable interview, both for the cause and for selling a couple of books for me. And those things are gone. So if I'm bitter about anything, it's about what's going on now. I've got to take this.
All right. Put yourself on mute while you do that. And in the meantime, while you do that, we'll give Carey a chance to talk about Cannabis Corner. Carey, why don't you let people know about your remarkable broadcast that you work on?
Well, we are kind of, we're just trying to get, like his program, trying to get the information out to people who have been brainwashed all the years. But I'm starting a new effort right now, and it's called Cannabis by Choice. And this basically is, us exercising our right as free Americans and as adults that we are old enough and know what is best for us and not some, law entity or something like that. And I'm personally, I'm not for all of these things like going on in Washington, Colorado, but with all the regulation and all things, it's wrong. It's when you go to make a substance legal back in this country that was legal one time before in our history, then we need to go back to that time before in our history. And what we're seeing today with all these regulations and all these grow rooms, cameras and barcode and everything, make sure it goes here or there, and telling people they can only grow 6 plants and this and that, I'm totally opposed to all that. I think it's wrong. That's not legal. And it just, we just didn't learn anything in America from Prohibition when it ended. It's just amazing.
I'm back. That was my good wife, my sweetheart. We've been together since she's 14 and I'm 15. And when I got out of prison, she was there waiting for me. I'm a pretty lucky guy.
You sure are. I'll tell you, my dad was lucky to find lightning in a bottle twice, but you're right. It's not often that any of us are able to find that special someone to spend our whole life with. That strength must have helped you through some of your most difficult times.
Yeah, and in fact, when I got out and Raconteur Films asked to see the manuscript for my book when they were considering making the movie, and the first thing that they saw was the thread that ran all through the book was a love story. Even when I lived in Europe and traveled around with Baron Rothschild or fought bulls in Spain or worked on the boardwalk with Ron Popeil, the one constant was Lynn, my love, my life. And that sold them on making the movie.
Well, it seems like your other sweetheart's name is Mary Jane, and that she is your mistress that your wife seems to approve of.
I'll keep my mouth shut about that.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, she does. But She knows I'm out there standing on the end of a plank, and she's really not happy about that, and I can't blame her.
Yeah, you leave yourself open as a target, as we all do, those of us who are in the public screaming end prohibition and getting up in the faces of the ignorant who continue these policies. Robert, we're getting down to the last few minutes of the big broadcast. What is it that you think is so important to take away from Grandma's documentary? I know there's a lot of information, there's a lot of facts there's a lot of doctors and research to be found and heard. And this guy, I'm sure you've got like 2 or 3 main points that you want people to walk away with when they get done watching this remarkable production.
The first thing is, and most important, is to no longer have the fear of the propaganda that they've heard all their life. To know that all the questions have been answered, whether it's about long-term use, short-term use, whether you should or shouldn't drive, how it affects every part of your body. And the first thing you have to do is dispel the fears and the myths. And should Grandma smoke pot takes care of all of that. And the second thing, as I said, is give people a personal reason. And there's really too many to list. And the third thing, most important to come away with, is the website, www.thesilvertour.org, O-R-G, because you can go there, donate, become a member. If you become a platinum member for $1,000, we'll give you lots of little gifts, books and DVDs and everything signed. But you'll also get one of Irv Rosenfeld's federal delivery cans that he gets his federal marijuana in. And they've sold at auction for up to $4,000 or $5,000. On that same site, you can click on the Stash House and buy a copy of my memoir. And it's not just a smuggling or prison book. It talks about all my years in Europe and my years as a pitchman and lots of other things. And you can get a signed copy of Square Grouper the movie, or lots of copies of Grandma's DVD to show to your friends. People are taking them to senior communities all over the country and showing that in the clubhouse. And that's not a bad thing to do. They're only $10. And
that's an excellent idea.
2 bumper stickers that say, should Grandma smoke pot? So
also, if they want to find a way to get it on the air in their neck of the woods, the same that you have done, are you able to help them make that happen, or do they do it on their own, or what?
No. I'm the only person who can buy time at that kind of a rate. The auction process is only open to infomercial producers.
All right, so if someone wants it on their neck of the woods, you'll be happy to help them make that happen, I take it.
I will find the time, get the station approval, and buy the time.
Awesome.
I have the funds. Or if they want to put it on a public access station where they don't pay, of course, that's not where the real audience is we're looking for, but there's certainly an audience there.
Absolutely.
I will supply them with air quality copies for just the cost of making the copy.
Beautiful. Well, we're down to a minute, so you want to give the website again, then we'll give Carey a chance to give a shout-out for his?
Yes, thesilvertour.org, and there's lots of information. There's letters you can send your congressman. There's a video of the Daily Show and Grandma, of course, and lots of others, and you can go to the Stash House on the site and spend a little money. It goes to a good cause.
Thanks, Robert. We'll be having you back on the big broadcast in the very near future. Carey, give a shout-out for your website.
All right. Thank you, Casper. Thank you, Robert. Good to meet you. CannabisCorner.com. Casper, let's get together and start planning the April 1st edition. We need to put a new one out this year.
All right. Will do. And I want to remind people that tomorrow normally is Leap Day. Peter Chris is on holiday, so we're going to be growing some new ideas on how to make your garden better here at Time for Hemp.